morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and grateful for everyone who's participating today. The first 15 days of President Trump's second term have left many feeling scared, anxious, and uncertain about their rights and about their protections, understandably so. Sadly, I think that's part of the president's intent, overwhelming us with a barrage of damaging, chaotic, illegal executive orders that impede on the laws and values that make our country great. It's the strategy: flood the zone, create confusion and chaos, try to create shock and awe. And while the federal administration creates confusion, employs scare tactics, and spouts off divisive and dangerous rhetoric, I'm here to provide facts, to provide reason, and assurances of California's nation-leading protections. Today, that message is for our state's students, families, and educators. California's schools are and will remain a welcoming, inclusive, and safe place for all, regardless of your sexual orientation, gender identity, or immigration status. The federal government does not dictate what we teach and does not write our curricula. We do that here in California. The federal government sets the floor of what education law requires. In this case, that floor, unfortunately, is in the basement. But states set the ceiling and can demand better, can provide for more. In California, our ceiling is sky high, and it'll stay that way. California DOJ, especially the members of our Civil Rights Enforcement Section, or CRES, are here to make sure of it. While the President has displayed a repeated disregard for the U.S. Constitution, unfortunately, we do still need to begin with the fact that the right to education and equal protection under the law is protected by the U.S. Constitution. The California Constitution, in addition, provides a separate, strong protection, making it clear that transgender and gender nonconforming individuals are a protected class who cannot be discriminated against. That includes forced outing policies that target transgender and gender nonconforming. In California, part of that education includes inclusive lessons. California is the most diverse state in the nation, proudly so. It's core to our identity and a major reason why we are the 5th largest economy in the world. Our diversity is both our story and our strength. It should be uplifted, it should be celebrated, and it should be taught. In California schools, it is, accurately, truthfully, respectfully, and without discrimination. California law requires that curricula, books, and instructional materials reflect the diversity of our state and the roles and contributions of our diverse population. All genders and races, persons with disabilities, and all ethnic, cultural, religious, and socioeconomic status groups. Our laws prevent schools from censoring inclusive and diverse perspectives. They also outline requirements for comprehensive and inclusive sexual education and ethnic studies courses. These laws protect and creates a respectful, equitable, and inclusive society where all can thrive as they are. My office has put out legal guidance on our requirements for inclusive curricula for schools, educators, and parents who want to learn more. Regardless of what our president says or does, California's education standards will remain high. I'll continue to protect our teachers as they do their jobs, a true public service that doesn't get enough recognition to begin with. Thank you to all of our teachers. And I'll continue to protect our children in their pursuit of an education. That extends to the work my office is doing to protect immigrant students and families. Again, I know there is some confusion when it comes to the president's immigration-related orders. I want to clear some of that up. This is especially important in our state where 11 million immigrants call California home, each deserving of every opportunity to pursue their California dream, including providing their children with a safe education. I'll repeat, in California, all students have the right to an education, regardless of their immigration status or the immigration status of anyone in their family. Every child and family also has the right to keep their education records and personal information confidential. Families should know that they don't have to share passports, visas, or a social security number, or even citizenship information to enroll their child in school. Schools must accept a variety of documents to keep the document. Parents have the right to opt out of disclosure of their child's directory information. And they can update their child's emergency contact information, including secondary contacts, to identify a trusted adult guardian who can care for their child if they are detained or deported. All of this and more is outlined in the guide for students my office has put out in multiple languages and is available to the public. The Trump administration's decision to abandon longstanding federal policy that strictly limits immigration enforcement within sensitive places like schools is deeply disappointing and very concerning. We cannot stop the federal government from using their resources for federal immigration enforcement or stop them from accessing public areas or a front lobby. But let me be clear. The president's order has no impact on California's law generally precluding state and local officials from assisting with federal government with immigration enforcement. The federal government cannot commandeer us, conscript us, state and local law enforcement or state public institutions to carry out their inhumane policies. They may do their job lawfully, but they cannot force the state or local law enforcement agencies to do their job for them. Federal immigration enforcement is not permitted to enter non-public areas without an order signed by a judge. This includes classrooms or libraries. We put out step-by-step guidance for schools and educators on what to do if immigration enforcement shows up on campus or requests personal information about a student or their family. First, if ICE shows up, the school should alert their local educational agency administrator and legal counsel immediately. They should ask to see the officer's credentials and any documentation that would authorize school access. And they should document everything that happens during the exchange. All of this is outlined in clear steps in our guidance. I urge schools to review it. We want to make sure our schools have all the information and all the resources they need so they don't get bullied or confused into violating any student's rights. I want to encourage schools to immediately contact legal counsel if they receive any request from ICE or find ICE agents on campus. I also want them to keep our office informed as we continue monitoring federal immigration efforts throughout the state. If you witness any concerning immigration-related activity, please email my team at immigration@doj.ca.gov, immigration@doj.ca.gov. It's been just over 2 weeks of the new federal administration, and already many of the challenges that we anticipate come to pass. We anticipated them, we were ready for them. Challenges that my team have been preparing for weeks and for months. That's why we were able to sue the president hours after he attempted to violate the Constitution and end birthright citizenship. Although the fight isn't over, we secured a temporary restraining order to protect American citizens while litigation proceeds. A Republican president appointee judge in that case, who had served for 4 decades, said that this was the clearest case he'd seen in his 4-decade tenure as a judge. He said the president's executive order was a blatant violation of the Constitution. And he even said his mind was boggled that the United States Department of Justice attorneys could advance the arguments that they were making in his courtroom. That's what our president did on day one. We were also ready, because of our preparedness, to sue the president hours after a memo came out from the Office of Management and Budget, attempting to freeze nearly $3 trillion in federal funds. Funds that supported essential, critical services throughout our nation. Things like health care for children, food programs for the poor, housing for low-income Americans, support for access to higher education and early childhood education, things like federal disaster relief that California needs yesterday to support our people in Los Angeles suffering from the LA fires. The president unconstitutionally tried to end that funding with the swipe of a pen. Again, we were able to temporarily block that freeze, keeping that critical funding accessible in the meantime. And it shouldn't be too much to ask that the President of the United States of America comply with the law, follow the law, act constitutionally, as he swore an oath to do 2 weeks ago. As the last 15 days have made clear, where the President falls down in his obligations, in his commitments, in his duty to follow the law and abide by the Constitution, when he tramples our rights or our freedoms, I will take action. I will see the President in court and stop him from taking that unlawful action. I will not be deterred by his divisive or his harmful rhetoric or chaotic late-night directives. As Chief Law Enforcement Officer for California, I'm here to defend, to enforce, and uphold our laws and protect all Californians. No matter how you look, where you're from, what language you speak, how you pray, who you love, or how you identify. That includes ensuring that our schools are welcoming, inclusive, and safe for all students and educators. All Californians will always have an ally in me. Before I open it up for questions, I want to acknowledge and thank the members of my team at DOJ who are working tirelessly, late nights, weekends, around the clock to protect Californians and ensure we hold the federal administration accountable to the law. Alexis Piazza, Eddie Nugent, Laura Fair, Joel Marrero, Virginia Corrigan, Michael Newman, and Cheryl Feiner. My team doesn't do it for the recognition, but I want to recognize them and thank them for their incredible work. We're 2 weeks in. We've been busy. We've been holding the president accountable, and we're ready for anything and everything that might come in the future. So with that, I thank you for being here and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Have you seen any confusion from school districts about guidance if ICE comes next?
We are. We're definitely seeing the need for clarity, for guidance, for defining the contours and the nuances. It's sometimes something that's not easily accessible to everyone in terms of how the federal law works. When they see an executive order, there's talk out there about the supremacy clause and federal law trumping state law, and it's not true in all cases. And so it's important that the chief law officer, me, my team, my office, provide the guidance, provide the clarity, make sure people know exactly what their rights are, what they can do, what they can't do, including intangible scenarios. So we try to turn it into real talk, plain speak, so that folks who are not attorneys and have rights and protections and duties and obligations are able to understand what those are.
And what would you say to districts or school districts that might not want to follow what you have laid out here?
You need to follow the law, is what I'd say. Students have rights. Educators have rights, have protections. California passed laws that apply to everyone. And everyone's entitled to their personal beliefs, and everyone must follow the law. Decide as an individual what to do based on your whims. It's time to look at the law as we've clarified it and follow it. And that's what today is about.
Do you know how many students have been missing classes since the new administration, and what's the impact?
We don't have a overall aggregate number. I will say this, we've had many reports of anecdotal situations in which parents aren't going to work and students aren't going to school. So we haven't been able to identify exactly what that looks like statistically, but we know that it is prevalent and that it's happening, and we've got on-the-ground reports of that occurring. Anyone else?
Do you have a statement in Spanish?
We can provide that afterwards. Anyone else? Thank you all for coming.